here. Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamers1745 here with my continuing look at Hearts of Iron 3's Black Ice 11.2, and is playing as the United States of America. And we will be playing a somewhat historical playthrough, not entirely. And I've been talking to Finnegan here about that. Venezuela is a hard one because their ideology actively changed as the war progressed. Okay. Yes. People's governments change in ideologies over time. And sometimes you get governments that are more aspirational than actual. I would say, and this is coming from my education in political science, Italy never becomes the totalitarian state that they want to become. They are definitely an authoritarian state, but they're never a totalitarian state. Lower education is handled by the Catholic Church. There is still a monarchy, which still is in power enough, separations of power enough from the fascist government. They never get the totalitarian state that they want to. Now, Germany and the Soviet Union both achieve totalitarianism. They both become totalitarian states. I believe it was Mussolini's fascist party are the ones that create the term totalitarianism as a good thing. There's a lot of Mussolini's party never fully gets into power in Italy. You still have the king. You still have a lot of other power centers within it that are cooperating with the fascists in Italy for sure. But you never get the totalitarianism that they want to have. They're trying, but they don't. So yeah, sometimes you have governments trying to aspirationally deal with something. And when it comes to places like Latin America, they never, you have to watch ideologies, and political leaders don't always say what they believe. They don't always say, I want to change this a little bit over to Cuba. Because if you listen to Castro before he gets into power, and in his very earliest days, it almost sounds like he could, now that you get rid of Batista and his party, he could become, if not a U.S. ally, he could become a sort of reasonable revolutionary government, shall we say. Could become. If you listen to his, like I say, his rhetoric before the revolution succeeds. But once he gets into power, and once it going, he goes full hard into pro-Soviet sphere. And unlike in Africa particularly, but in other places too, the Cold War to them is just, if you will, and I don't mean it. It's tribal politics, and what side, what factional politics might be, what faction you're in. So they will, like particularly in Africa, they'll give a lot of lip service to communism and whatever, but they don't really care. It's just who's giving them the money, who's giving them the arms, who's supporting their government, and you get these shifting and factionalisms going on. And you do have some of that in Latin America as well. But Castro doesn't need to go hardcore Soviet puppet, but he decides to. And he goes down that path. And so, I don't know the details of Venezuela's government in the 30s and early 40s. And we can just look again here. We did look at Venezuela, and here it's overwhelmingly an authoritarian, where this is authoritarian, this is fascist, and this is National Socialist. I don't know if there's a Movimento Nacional Socialista in Venezuela. I highly doubt it. I doubt that there is even a 0.1% of people that would fall under National Socialism. And I'm not just talking hatred of Jews or racial superiority. I mean all the rest of the ideology of National Socialism, which is different than fascism, people. National Socialism and fascism are two distinctly different ideologies. Both revolutionary, both socialist. Fascism and National Socialism are socialist ideologies. They both believe in collective ownership of the means of production by the people through the state, but they are both hierarchical socialists. They're not leveling socialists. This is why some of the quote-unquote socialists and communists out there will say that they're not. Well, they believe in a hierarchy, meaning you can have a rich person and a poor person. They don't want to have too poor of a person, but you can have a worker guy who's a worker who's getting worker money, and a guy who's getting executive pay money, and they're not all meant to be level playing field. Yeah, but both fascism and National Socialism, and they're distinctly different in their ideological viewpoints and how they organize up various elements of the state and economy, different. And there really is a stronger religious element to National Socialism than there is to fascism. But it is different. And so National Socialism, fascism, and socialism, they're all socialist ideologies. The two main distinct differences between the socialism of the left and the socialism of the right, maybe we should call it, is the socialism of the left are levelers, meaning they want in theory they want everyone making the same, same outcome, everyone living in the same size of apartment, everyone getting the same. And two, they're anti-nationalistic, they are internationalists, where with the fascists and the National Socialists, they are hyper-nationalists, and they are hierarchical in their outcomes. But they definitely want to take care of the correct people, particularly in the Nazis. The correct people, they want to take care of the poor. They care about the poor German. They don't care about the poor other people, whether they're Jews or Slavs or whatever. They don't. Those people are disposable, and more so. But the German people, they want to take care of the poor and the help, need to help people in Germany. So they are socialist in that aspect. So it's interesting. Okay, let me read what the Cold War. The Cold War, you could say, was in many regards like a prelude to war gaining strategic. Yes, absolutely. South America had integralism, generally speaking, as its alternative to fascism. I'm not exactly sure how you're using the term integralism. Integralism had general fascist hierarchy system, but had light emphasis on monarchism and a large emphasis on Catholicism and national. Okay, you're an integrated state church. Yeah, but you see, and there I'll agree with you on that it's but they didn't have the social elements of at least in practice, because again, I did take Latin American studies courses when I was going many years ago, and most of it was they I remember going about Argentina and Juan Perón and whatnot, which is sort of around this time, a little bit later, but so I know bits and pieces about it. There definitely, it just doesn't seem to be the socialist element, and there doesn't seem to be the everything for the state element. that we see in fascism. Everything is to be state organized. But I just don't see that in Latin America. I just don't see that. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't some thinker out there, because there are always thinkers out there promoting ideas, and other practical politicians go, yeah, I like some of what he says, but then they don't necessarily implement it. So, yeah, I just don't think fascist is the term good, to be good to intermix, and I'm not. The left overly throws fascist around. You know, they'll call a person who is a libertarian a fascist, and just because they're supposedly on the right and they're against them, so they're the fascist enemy. And so, okay, carrier damage control. I think you know where I'm going with some of this stuff, and we've got too much, so we'll reduce that down. There's definitely, at this time, Peru at this time is very much of a socialist sort of country. They were at least emotionally on the side of the Spanish Republic. I don't know if they really sent any significant aid to the Republican side. Peru boycotts the Olympics, the 1936 Olympics, because of Germany's support for the nationalists in the Spanish Civil War. But they're about the only Latin American country that does that. That's doing okay. Zinc sales expired. Fine. And so most of them are, right now, in 38, Bolivia is going through a crisis. What is it, 1934 to 1935, I think it is. I know it ends in 1935. There's the Chaco War. This is sort of the Chaco up here. It's sort of a very dry, simplified terrain map. Well, this desert might be going a little too far here, but it is a very dry sort of wasteland, this part of South America, right in here. Super dry. And there is brush, because it gets sort of like a monsoon or a rain periodically. So it's not sandy desert like over here. It isn't this kind of stuff, but it's a very, very dry area. And Bolivia is more or less the aggressor, I believe. There's disputes on that, but it's sort of the Paraguay versus Bolivia war. Chile is supporting Bolivia. Argentina is supporting Paraguay. Germany is supporting Bolivia. Ernst Röhm had earlier been training down here. The head at the start of the war, as the war is starting or whatever, the head of the Bolivian army is a German. He had been kicked out of he had been sort of like chief of staff of the army and main trainer. He had been kicked out for political intrigues within the country. And he had got a position of training soldiers or something over in Chile. But when the war sort of breaks out, he is asked back to lead the Bolivian army. So he's sort of a Latin America. He had been involved in Latin America before World War I. I forget his name. Once World War I breaks out, he goes back to Germany and is an officer in World War I, and then afterwards, wanting a job, comes back to Latin America. So he's a Latin American, expert as Germany goes. Well, I think it's about 50,000 people, Bolivians. 50,000 Bolivians die in this war. This is a hugely costly war for both sides, but it is very, very costly for Bolivia, and it's over perceived like oil resources in here, which I don't really know that there are any, but they thought there might be, and so they go to war over them. And it's really, it's pretty bad. And sort of the well-equipped side is Bolivia, and the under-equipped side is Paraguay. And Paraguay, they don't have tractors, but they get all their tanks from Bolivia. They're just, and maybe not all of their tanks, but they get some of their tanks from Bolivia, in that they capture them and then use them against Bolivia. So, and it's costly on Paraguay, but because Bolivia is seen as the aggressor, including within the Bolivian society, it really eventually, and it really takes until like the 1950s. And if you'll notice, one of the few national leaders to this day, I believe, of a Latin American country who is not primarily of Spanish descent is the current leader of Bolivia. He's a radical leftist. Probably communist, but definitely a radical leftist. Forget his name. But you can very, very clearly tell that he's an Indian, at least primarily in his genetics, as opposed to, if you notice much of Latin American countries, you'll notice however Indian percentage, of the population they may be, some areas highly, some areas like Argentina, mostly European in genetics. Whatever the percentage is, normally the elites are pretty Spanish genetically. Little mixed, but pretty Spanish. Well, this is because of what happens. There's sort of a political revolution, and although Spanish speaking but non-Spanish populist majority in Bolivia really rises up against the elites there, namely because they were pro-class and not anti-class. Integration of state organizations, strategic and military industry. Okay, I think their daughter took over, if this is who I'm thinking of. I'm not sure. We're going with the fascism as socialism. They are different. State organizations as strategic things like military industry. If you're going with fascism as social, then they are different. Okay, maybe you've lost me a little bit here. Yeah. Between the integralism of Latin America. Yes. Yeah. See. Yeah. Mussolini and his socialist magazine. He isn't the only founder of Mussolini. Isn't the only thought founder of fascism. I forget some of the names. But he is one of the primary founders of thought fascism, as in the fascist ideology. Mussolini is a socialist. He is named Benito Mussolini. How Italian is the name fucking Benito? I don't think at all. Benito is not an Italian name. It is Spanish. He is named after Benito Juarez, the ousted president of Mexico, who liked to dress like Abraham Lincoln. He's ousted because of mostly the French come in and invade the country. Britain a little bit, but Britain just wanted to get its money back. They had loaned Mexico money and Mexico wasn't paying, so they invaded and got their money back and went home. The French wanted to put Maximilian on the imperial throne of Mexico, but Benito Juarez goes into exile. And he's, I don't know how much of a socialist Benito Juarez, but he is, sort of a man of the people, genetically rather Indian. And so his socialist parents, Benito Mussolini's parents, name him after Benito Juarez. So Mussolini is a socialist, but he finds, after a time, and partially it's through the experience of World War I, that nationalism is a thing and an important thing to him, and the leveling aspects of socialism aren't a good thing. So he moves socialism into something that is hyper-nationalistic, something that is still hierarchical, but it is still ultimately socialist in that the means of production, for food, for industry or whatever, belong to the people collectively and are administered through the state, but can be private. I'm trying to use the language that I try to understand it. If it can be caretaken by individuals or groups of individuals, meaning like the corporation, um, in that, so that a corporation, a business, can function as an independent business, but it's supposed to function within a planned economy. Germany is not a planned economy. The National Socialism of Germany does not believe in planned economies. Now, they eventually have one because of the war, but outside of the war, Hitler and the National Socialism of Germany, unlike fascism, does not believe in planned economies. They're not capitalists, but they want competition up in Germany. That's for economics. The main difference that I see it is National Socialism wants competition and an unplanned economy, meaning companies competing with each other, where fascism wants a planned economy. And so, yes, there can be big corporations, often with, many people, like stock ownership shares, but they are responsible to the state for stewardship of the resources, whether they are, mining resources or resources of a factory, proper, stewardship. So it's management, so it's all for the state, it's everything for the state, but it's hierarchical, so it's somebody can be rich, but everybody's taking care of it at a minimum base. It's not trying to make everybody level, it's not trying to make everybody equal, but it is trying to take care of everybody, and it is a collectivist viewpoint that comes out of socialism. Mussolini never leaves that collectivist viewpoint. And remember, when he sets up his second government, it is the Italian Social Republic that he sets up as the German puppet state. And so he never leaves the socialism, but he leaves the internationalism of socialism, that all the governments of different nations should wither away. He believes instead of I'm not going to go into why I think governments under socialism can never go wither away, but the theory sort of with communism that governments will eventually wither and die and it'll just be communism, but he sees that is never going to happen, and so he goes hyper-statism, and with that is hyper-nationalism and hierarchy, but it's still always a socialism and still always a collective ownership viewpoint with fascism. Different, the Nazis do things somewhat differently, but they're also collectivists and also socialists, but not levelers. So you can believe in rich people driving expensive Mercedes and less rich people, I don't necessarily want to call them poor people, driving Volkswagen Beetles. So it's, they both get to be on the road, and if you're more successful in life, you get to drive the Mercedes, and if you're less successful in life, you drive the Volkswagen. And so it's, that is sort of the German ideal, not that it comes about in reality, but the ideal of the German socialism is that we're not all equal in that sense, but we're all equally part of this collectivist Germanness kind of thing with their National Socialism. So that's why they're socialist. They're not, again, I totally agree with the left. They're not leveling socialists. They're not trying to make everyone equal. And that's where some of the things is. Benito is short term for Benedict. Well, I think Benito, may come out of Spanish pronunciation of Benedict, but it is Benito Juarez, is my belief is his proper name for the, and it may have the same root meaning. I don't think it's like a shortened. I don't think Ragar. I may be wrong, but where Benedict I think is a anglicized version of a Latin term or Latin name. Oh, Mussolini. Yeah. You're thinking of I'm getting the daughter. Maybe I think its granddaughter is Alessandro Mussolini. I think its granddaughter, Finnegan, is who I think you're talking about. Who is a kind of thing. Flex me. Though double, how you doing? I enjoy the MAGA folks when they try to say Nazis were actually socialists because they bark the word socialist into their party name. Um, German or Trump folks are not smart. Well, that's very pleasant of you. I'm glad you're such an expert on National Socialism, Hitler, and Nazism to know that to know much better than I do about after all the studying I did. You must have gone to some very good special studying to know all that. So you could say fascism was after state control of the economy, while Nazism were after state direction of the economy with ultimate collectivist, but with a lighter hand. Okay, Hitler believed in so many ways in competition, okay? He even sets up within his government, his totalitarian state, different agencies competing to do the same thing. Hitler believed that you would have something like Organization Todt and the Reichsarbeitsdienst, the RAD, and the DAF, the Deutsches Arbeitersfront, the German Workers' Front, all trying to do the same thing and having them compete with each other to then find out what works best. Hitler believes in competition. So Hitler does not want a planned economy. But he also, he'll talk about anti-capitalism in multiple ways because, the leftists here, when often they talk about capitalists, they mean rich people with owning of capital. Where when I use the term, I mean capitalism as in competing it, because a monopoly is not capitalism. I mean, it's when capitalism breaks, because I mean market capitalism as in competing things. Hitler is not a market capitalist, but also Hitler does not want to see the exploitation, whether of workers or of other things. Now he'll exploit the people that might as well disappear, the useless people, in camps and things. We're being YouTube friendly here, if you understand what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to whitewash the situation, but trying to stay YouTube friendly here. So Hitler does not want to, allow a big or small company exploit the German worker. So the DAF workers, which DAF is sort of becomes the national union organization of Germany, they don't go on strike. They don't need to go on strike. If the DAF hierarchy says that there's a problem with the management of a particular business or a particular factory, that guy's in trouble. Okay, so there's no need for strike because the DAF is part of the state. So working, they work to improve, working conditions, workers' safety, not overworking hours. Again, a lot of this goes out the window once the war gets, extreme, and so they work people very hard, whatever it is, to get the war work done. But in peacetime, in 38, 39, whatever, they're working to improve workers' working conditions in the factories, working on making sure the workers get paid a living wage, to use a sort of a modern term. I don't know if they use that term, but so it's a situation where you can't exploit the workers, you can't exploit the market. So you couldn't say, if you had a lot of money, you couldn't dump shoes on the market to put your competitor out of business below the market price. That would not be allowed under National Socialism, because that would be hurting the company. But you can have two shoe brands competing at the margin as who gets more sales. But he wants to keep both factories in business because he doesn't want to see a monopoly of one factory or one company owning all the shoe manufacturing in Germany. But he also doesn't want a planned economy like you factory make 10,000 pairs of shoes, you make 10,000. Well, you're a big company, so you make 20,000 pairs of shoes. He doesn't want to plan that out either, like you want to do in fascism, is to plan out how many shoes you need in your country every year made. Now, he wants it to be, a competition as to who can do it better. And so if somebody can come up with a new machine that makes shoes twice as efficiently, And so they can reduce the amount of workers, which would free up workers, whether to be soldiers or to go into another thing, or just expand to have more shoemaking if you're going to export them or whatever. So if you can come up with an innovation, great. But you don't get to, so you can fire your workers if you have an innovation and you don't need them, but you can't exploit your worker. And so, it's that competition kind of thing that Hitler wants, struggle and competition within government offices, within party offices, because you get different elements within the National Socialist Party system, which is, as time goes on, is more and more integrated into the state. But those are competing against each other. He wants competition. Hitler wants, if it was some other sort of empire, you might call it divide and rule. But he really isn't talking about divide and rule. He just wants all of his managers at different levels and different organizations to compete and struggle against each other. He wants that. He does not want a centralized planned economy. It is only when Speer actually gets control of the economy that it is becoming more and more centralized, and that is only because of the war. And you don't need competition as to who's making what type of artillery piece. No, it all needs to be the same. It all needs to be pumped out. It all just needs to work for the war effort. So it becomes, if you will, more fascist, not National Socialism, because of the war. But the ideology never leaves. Meaning the ideology doesn't change to centralized planned economy. It just becomes centralized planned economy because of the war. The ideology still believes in the competition of it, and that would have come back after the war struggle was over. So that is sort of how, and I, trust me, in the past, I have thought that there was fascism, and then Nazism was just fascism plus racism. Well, no, it's not. It's a different economic, different government, because again, competing branches within the government, competing branches within the party, competing all this stuff within the National Socialism. So it's a much more competing system. There's many more government factions, many more government organizations within the National Socialist state than there is within the fascist state. And it's all set up, and Hitler organically does this. It isn't because, again, he believes in this competition. So he's always sort of looking at this kind of thing and keeping his state running that way. And so we have to look at Hitler's ideology and Hitler's practices. And so National Socialism is a collectivism. It is a socialism, but it is not a leveling. It is hierarchical, but it is not the centralized planned economy of at least the ideal fascist state. So that is how they are different in, and it's sort of hard to explain some of these differences because I'm still trying to figure them out, quite honestly. I don't have all the answers on it, but I've looked at more and more and read a lot about Hitler. Flex me? Well, Flex me, I had a university course the whole course was just on one man, and that was Hitler. So have you taken a course? Australia gets zinc. Okay, on Hitler? And you want to say MAGA people, blah, blah, blah. Well, and you probably already left because you got upset because you're a snowflake and left. Probably. You can say hi if you're still here. But I did have a university course on Hitler. And so, and that isn't even most of my studying. And so, yeah, I sort of know what I'm talking about when I say Hitler and Nazis were socialists, because I've read these translations. I don't read German. I've read translations of their works and what they were saying and what they were doing and how they were working. Well, like complicated, especially when the last minutia theoretical differences can exist. Yeah, and I'm looking at both Hitler's writings when I'm looking at National Socialism, as well as his practices, as well as what literally comes down to his table talk that people have, recorded after the, written down after the events, and to get Hitler's views on these topics. And so. Yeah, and there's, I think it was you or one of you said, ideas change over time that people have, and I'm not saying they don't, and that's some of this stuff I'm trying to pin down with understanding of this stuff, because I truly trying to understand National Socialism. I am not just somebody who wants to throw around a label and say it's this. Is that's sort of the reason I Finnegan, I asked you about what you thought Franco was, to try to get your definitions of what you view, because I don't view, doesn't mean I gotta like him or like him, but I don't view Franco or the nationalist government that comes under him as being fascist. That there are fascists in it, there are fascist elements within it, but it is not a fascist ideologically, nor fascist as in practice. Now it's authoritarian. I knew one guy who lived in later, in 1970s or whatever, or 60s, maybe more 60s, whatever, Spain under Franco, American who lived there. He liked it. He had no problems. Now, I'm not saying he wanted to live or wanted that or here in America. But yeah, no, I liked Spain, he said. I liked it under Franco living there, So, I didn't have a problem. Now, he's a foreigner who is very European but Mexican American, so he was bilingual, so he spoke Spanish. So it wasn't, he would be taken for a Spaniard, I do believe. Maybe his Spanish accent would give him away as not being a Spaniard. I don't know. I can't tell on that thing. But he wasn't some clueless English-only speaking American living in Spain for a few years. So, I'm not saying I like all that Franco does, but he is a practical nationalist, not a fascism. That's sort of the left that brands it. I can't remember if this was from my grandpa or grandma, but politics is a whirlwind that never ends. You might know where you stand, but you'll never know or navigate the currents or something like that. Yeah. There's always good quotes like that. Mobile unit command and control. And I try to understand these things, try to educate through my channel, through my mods, about these things. And just because I'm trying to explain something doesn't mean I agree with it, right or left. And sometimes things that might work well in a particular incidence at a particular time. Yeah, we can give them fuel. We got extra fuel. In a practical sense, like, yeah, this is good for working through the war, whether it's America doing it or Italy doing it or whatever, or the Soviet Union doing it for the war. Yeah, but that doesn't mean I want it to continue, or that is even, that didn't last long. That is even the best solution. It's just something, because sometimes things can work well, but they're not the best solution. They're just a solution that works. There may be better solutions that also work. Radar advance. So don't take anything that I say here just because I'm saying something that that it's an endorsement of it. Mobile unit. 1939, we'll move these over to 1938. Technology, so it'll be more efficiently done. I'm trying to study political science and economics myself. I've been interested in politics since I was little, especially local politics. Kind of garbage, yeah. Okay, I recently came up. Well, one, I don't believe there is such a thing as political science. I have a degree in it. Don't believe it exists. They try to make it like a social science, like sociology. It's not. There are two elements of it. There's one, political theory, and then there's two, the art of politics. Okay, Germany has annexed Czechoslovakia and set up Slovakia. United Kingdom has guaranteed the independence of Poland, and Germany doesn't believe them. You know what happens. I don't think I need to explain how much of a mess where I live in, pointing out it's Seattle. Yeah. Oh, yeah, let me save this just in case it crashes out. I came up with this the other night. Let me just play it here for you. You'll hear the audio in just a second. This. If you're in university, Seamus or Finnegan, I should say. Oh, it's not.
Part of politics is convincing people to accept their governance.
Okay, I think that you got a reverberation. So the art of politics, like I say, there's two elements to it. I don't believe in political science. It exists. It is not a science. There is political theory that we've been talking about, whether it's, what is the theory of fascism or the theory of National Socialism or of socialism or of communism or of Republican governments or democratic governments or things. There's political theory. But the art of politics is convincing people to accept their governance. And that there it should be spelled two ways. Their, THEIR, their governance, but it's also their, THERE, governance. It's spelled both ways. That you have double that use has double meaning. It is convincing people. The art of politics is convincing people to accept their governance. That is the key to the art of politics, is convincing people to accept their governance. Meaning there as in those who are governing to have people accept their governance, and then people that are being governed, trying to convince them to accept it. Yes, I should be governed by somebody or something. Is that, and that is what the art of politics is. And yes, Seattle is doomed. Okay, mobile unit training advanced. No, mountain unit training advanced. Boy, I'm not reading that right. That is down here, and it's 38. We'll let that continue. And this machine gun focus, I believe that is armament. There, stop. That is something I don't think anybody else has ever said as clearly as that in all of my stuff. What are your thoughts on rent control? Is it good, bad, reasonable forms of it or not? Okay, well, I don't believe in anything. I am not an ideologist on anything, such hardline elements. Okay. But generally speaking, markets are the best decider of things like that. If you, how do I put this? If you have an emergency situation that's going to last a while, we're talking months or even a few years, you don't want to push a populace to be homeless. But we can see places, particularly like in Santa Monica here in California, you have rent controlled apartments that were rented literally in the 1970s and are still paying the same rent to this day. If the person hasn't left there. So the market is the better decision element. Price controls should only be coming in to deal with extremes. And fuck it. No one deserves a sea view apartment, like right along Santa Monica, right along looking out over PCH and seeing the ocean. No one deserves that. So then it was $200 a month in 1970. You should still be paying $200 a month now for that same apartment. Or if it was $1,000 a month in 1990, you should still be paying $1,000 a month. Maybe it should be $1 million a month now in that thing. There's nothing saying that you need to have this glorious view of an apartment or anything like that. Now, that also doesn't mean that exploitation. Now, what we're having is a problem in America is incoming populations. So they drive up things like rent. So that if you have an endless amount of new renters coming in, then you're always going to have that inflationary push of the rent costs. And what it seems to be, and you're pointing out, is the idea that governments, to mitigate that, is going to put caps on what you can charge for rent, which is a bad idea. Now, so generally speaking, it is a destructive element, because who in their right fucking mind, I don't know if you were around when I was talking about the earlier conditions in the 30s, who in their fucking mind would want to build a new apartment building in Santa Monica that once they build it, they then rent it, and then those prices are all fixed until one of the people happen to move out and somebody new comes in that they can raise the price on it. Nobody will want to expand the rental capacity because they won't see, because of inflation, because of whatever reason, otherwise they won't see, including taxes going up on the same properties, they won't see the good investment it is to expand the amount of rental properties being available to meet the needs, because it'll be unprofitable to do that. So rent controls will almost invariably cause more problems than they'll solve, like most government programs. So I would agree, markets to an extent, in that some restraints must exist, like for here in Seattle, rent control is banned by the government. We have radically higher rent for even low value homes. There are commercial rent plots that have been empty for 2 decades now, with rent going up to higher. Okay, well, now I'm talking about rent as in home ownership. Commercial rent is a whole different thing. Now, why do you have empty rental properties? I know why. Finnegan, do you know why you have empty rental properties? And don't just say it's because the rent is too high. That is not the answer. But why is there empty rental properties? Because I learned this mostly with commercial real estate, but it does hold true to at least some, and maybe a major case of housing rental. Recon 39. Okay, let's move. Do you know why? So I know with commercial for sure why it's going higher. So I've rented. I don't know if you've rented commercial real estate in your lifetime. And I asked the question and I got the answer. Just giving you time to think in that. Will you give them oil? Sure, you can have oil. Depends on the plot. Some are the prime real estate events. As far as real estate agent goes through high prices You know, nope, that's not it at all. Not at all. That isn't it at all. Okay, here's why you have, particularly in commercial, rents too high, or empty stuff. The banks. Okay, what happens is a lot of those properties are owned by the banks, and if they say that this building rents for $10 a square foot, they then count up the square footage in the building, and that's the value of this building, okay? And so they would rather have an empty building that rents for $10 a square foot than go, oh, well, it's only valued at $5 a square foot, so that would reduce the building's property in half, the value in half. And it's because of the banking system. And it also is the system of, if that's what the bank owns it, as well as when somebody has a loan on the building. So let's say if a guy owns a building and wants to buy a building across the street because it's for sale, he'll go to the bank and go, hey, I have my rental building here, and it rents, and it's half full. It rents at $10 a square foot, and so it's worth $100,000 a year or something, in income, blah blah blah, has this value. Rent me some money so I can buy this other building across the street. And the bank looks at all, yep, that sounds good, fine, signs off on it. So this guy then buys the other building. Well, if he lowers the value of his building by taking it from $10 a square foot down to $5 a square foot, I'm just using big numbers here, takes it down to that, the bank will call up, sir, we loaned you a bunch of money on that property that you had. Now we've been informed that it is now it's worth less than the value of the money that you borrowed against it. We need some other guarantees of the loan, or we're going to immediately call in your loan and take over your building, sir. So meaning his financial situation will collapse if he reduces, or the bank reduces, the value of the rental square footage commercially on that property. So it will set set it up there. So if the bank owns it, or if one of these like BlackRock, big corporation ownership corporations, if they reduce the price, their ownership value goes down, because the ownership value on a commercial rental particularly, but also for residential, is based on the income value, as opposed to where, particularly with residential, you also have the sale value, that someone would buy it to just own it and not rent it, not as a rental property. But rental properties valuation, because if I own a building, if I own 50% of a home, meaning I've bought a home, I've, between my down payment and paying it off, I now own half of the value of the home. And if that value of the home is $500,000 or $1 million, if it's worth $1 million, that means I have $500,000 in value that I can again take out a second loan on it to buy some other house, maybe in a cheaper state than Washington or California. Buy some other property out here with that value, and rent it out, hopefully. And so if I keep that up, and I may start it out when it's worth that, but if the price goes down, then the value of the home goes down, and I can't do all the financial stuff. So it is banking that's keeping a lot of that going. I'm sure you can find, and I see what you're writing there, some details where this doesn't hold true in certain places and certain conditions. Somebody could die, and the ownership of the property is in dispute, and it's in a trusteeship, and the trustee doesn't care about renting out the property at any lower price. They don't care if nobody takes it. They're just in a trusteeship. So whether the building is empty or the building is thing, and they're going through litigations, and so there can be individual cases that that explain why no one has lowered the price of real estate down, and because obviously some commercial real estate could be converted to living, residential real estate, or vice versa, depending on deciding. So there's it's the banking system is what's keeping particularly commercial real estate. Because I would go into, when I was trying to rent office spaces for various things in the past, I go into it and think, nice building here. Man, they were $7 a square foot or whatever it was. They're showing me around this building, and I'm realizing this building complex is 20% occupied. I asked, I can afford $5 a square, whatever it was, like $5 a square foot or a month on this, and I can't afford $7. And this is a really nice building, a nice place. Wouldn't they rather have some income going? And the guy, no, it's owned by the bank, because he specifically said this building is owned by the bank, and their bank, how much assets the bank owns is based on the value of the rental that they get in that building. So they don't care. Ultimately, the rental income is inconsequential to the overall ownership of the building for the bank and the valuation of the assets of the bank. And if they lowered it down, the assets would go down in the bank, and it would be bad for the bank. So they don't care. So if you want it, it's this price. We'll even, they'd give you, we'll give you 3 months off rent, free, 3 months free. We don't care, so long as the dollar value says X per month, we'll give you some free months. Now, it wasn't going to be free months every year. It was free months to sort of move in and get settled and whatnot. And I'm looking at, well, I'm not just wanting to be here for a year. I'm wanting to be here for 10 years or whatever it might be. I don't know. I know that isn't worth it. So they would do anything. They would work with me almost in any way short of actually reducing the square footage value of the building, and that I learned. And so I ended up mostly renting in buildings that weren't owned by banks, because they would deal. If they had free office space, because it was for office space that having to deal with in the past wasn't store frontage space, so you didn't care. But it was just in office buildings. And so location was important, but it wasn't, people were going to come visit. They were, directed to come there. It wasn't foot traffic walking by and seeing coming in. So, but where it was an issue. But yeah, so I found buildings where people would be willing to deal with you got in free stuff. Well, this and the other thing, and sign a rent agreement. So that's why rent is so high in a lot of these places. And for residential, a lot of it is flooding of people coming in. And also it's partial, that's the flooding of people coming in, and it's the willingness of people to live 4 people to a room as well. And so they're able to pay more for rent than, say, 1 person per room. And that does make a bit of difference. People coming in CAS pilot training. Flying transport ship engine, which is over here. We'll stop that. We got both of those. We can do landing craft flotillas. And infantry guns advance, which now opens up all of these here. Port of Tungsten, Chile. No, thank you. building up enough money. Then, in your opinion, at least, what can even be done about rent situations like this, especially in regards to owners like the banks that are often after land value and not after rent? Well, how do I put this? It goes back to government interference. And it goes back to the 1930s, maybe a little before 1938, but back to this time period. During the beginning of the Great Depression, there was the bank crash, the stock market crash. They're both related to each other. There was also, of course, the Dust Bowl and other things. But what happens with the banks is, how do I put this? Banks don't lend you money, okay? Or don't lend businesses money. They don't. They sell money, okay? They don't lend money, they sell money. What you do is you give the banks, if you are a holder of money, you give banks money with you sell them the money for a return on the money. We'll keep it simple. You give, and I know it isn't this way. I know it's more like Britain or one of the banks in Germany just went up to 1%. But let's say you give them money and you get 10% back over a year. Okay. So you're selling money with a return on it. The banks then go and they resell that money to somebody else for 20%. I just want to keep numbers simple here. So they're making 10% on the money. It doesn't. I knew some bankers that they were dealing in fractions of percent and making millions of dollars a day. Sometimes the volume is very high. So don't. I'm just doing big numbers just to keep it simple. Because sometimes the banking numbers can be very, very, very thin margins between what they're taking in and what they're going out. Okay, so they make their money on selling other people money, and so they sell them the money for a repayment schedule plus interest. So they're selling out money. Now what happens? So the bank cannot, and this gets deep in financial situations, and people think my opinions are interesting. That's good to hear. Is banks cannot take in all this money and then hold on to it and hand it back out, that money plus 10%, because they'll go out of business. Okay, they'll go out of business because it takes money to start a bank. It's all really short. You got to go through regulations and setting things up, and more today than it was in the past. But in the olden days, in 1900, literally almost all it took was money, and you could start a bank. That's sort of how Bank of America got started. It was called the Bank of Italy at the time, and it was, I think, right around 1900 when there was the San Francisco earthquake. Literally, one of the guys who was involved in banking literally had a pile of money, and it was called the Bank of Italy at the time. That directly becomes Bank of America today, that probably most Americans have heard of. He's literally handing out money and writing down, somebody owes me money, to deal with the literal hours after the San Francisco earthquake situation. And so he builds the bank off of the San Francisco earthquake that becomes the Bank of America. And it was really literally a small time operation, but he had his money in the bank or whatever. He had enough money, so it becomes it. So all it takes is money. But if people are giving you money in, and you have to give them the money back, right? So what you have to do this system, you have to give money to somebody else away, okay? So you to earn money to be able to pay off the people that put money in your bank, whether it's whether it's grandma or some little kid with their $100, doesn't matter the amount, or whether it's some mega corporation shows up with $10 billion, it doesn't matter. This has nothing to do with scale. It has to do with basic economics. And banks are useful, people. I can go into it. There's a lot of you may go banks are evil, but they're a necessary and a useful evil. Doesn't mean they can't do bad things. Big banks, small banks, doesn't mean they can't do bad things, but banks are necessary. So that means they're good. Like air is good, right? But you blow too much oxygen in your lungs, you can blow yourself up. So too much of a good thing, or bad air, with some contaminants in it, smog or whatever. But you still need air. So smoggish air, air, not quite poison, true poison, but air, smog levels. Well, it's still better than no air. So we got to have banks. So it's not getting rid of banks. Banks are useful things. So this isn't an anti-bank rant or anything. Okay, so the bank has to put out money, has to put out enough money loaned out on things to be able to make enough to pay off the people that put money into the bank. Okay, so if, let's say, the bank has $1 million in assets, they would like to loan that $1 million out. But they know they can't, because every single day one of their customers comes in, I want some of my money. So they go, okay, well, we'll loan out again, keeping the numbers simple here, $900,000. We're going to keep $100,000 in our bank. Just because every day, some grandma wants a dollar or two, whatever it is that we do. So they got to keep some money in the bank. Well, because of the stock market crash, there was a run on banks. And because banks were failing, people had put money into the stock market that was only going up and up and up, and they would buy it on the margin. And meaning they would, if I can buy 100 shares by putting only the price of 10 shares down, and after 30 days or 90 days or whatever, sell that and make $30, or whatever, make a killing. That, so long as it's going up, that works. But if you put in more than what you could, so the idea was, I don't want to get explained it, but okay, get off of that. But so there was people, everybody showed up at the bank, but I want my money. I want my money. And the bank's going, we don't have all your money. We don't have all your money because we've loaned it out to other people. And so what the problem is, and so banks failed. And then people lost confidence in the banks because the banks failed. So the government, which still does to this day, right now it's about, I think, $250,000. If you have a bank account in an FDIC insured account, it'll take a while to get the money out of it if the bank fails, but you can get your money out up to $250,000. So even if the bank collapses tomorrow, you can get your money out of the bank. So don't put too much money in any one bank. And you can get your money out. So the bank may shut its doors because it doesn't have the money to hand the money out, but your money isn't lost. It's the government is insuring it. So to do this insurance thing, the government requires the bank to have secured assets, including money on hand, a certain amount of money on hand, to have certain types of, and I'm getting into areas that I really don't know the details of, but they require you to have, secured assets and not to have as proportion to the amount of money loaned out, that they own assets, that they actually own. See, an asset can be, because see, if they own a building in Chicago or, middle of nowhere, if they own that building or that piece of property, that's sort of like having cash. And we're not talking a loan out onto somebody else that they've loaned it out, but they actually own the building. They can sell that building. So that that's an asset. So like, oh shit, we're having a run on the bank, and the bank inspector comes and shows, okay, you got a run on you. Okay, well, you do have 10 million, you do have $10 million worth of property over here. Okay, we'll sell 5 million of that quickly, just fire sale it out and pay off your people demanding money, and then we're all good. So you have to have assets. And so they value to keep the whole system going, they move a lot of assets into something hard, because stocks can fluctuate, other things can fluctuate. So they put it in real estate. And then they like that asset if everything would go well, that whether it's commercial or residential, they'd love to have it to be actually an income property. But it's an investment asset. So the problem is, to fix your solution, you got to sort of destroy the current banking system. So you need a banking system for surety. So meaning if you're a farmer, you need farming equipment. Well, you can't necessarily save up to buy a new tractor. If your tractor breaks down and you need a new tractor today, I got to have a tractor to farm. Well, save up for it. Well, I can't have any income unless I have a tractor. The farmer can go into the bank, go, hey, I've got all this farmland. I have this history of farming. It's going to be profitable. I mean, yeah, there may be down years. We can look into this stuff. But give me a loan to buy a tractor, and I'll pay you off over time. And the bank, yeah, this is a good deal. You need that upfront money because when we need farms, we need to have farmers periodically need new farm tractors, and they can't everyone have a rainy day fund, and extra money sitting around for a tractor in case there's breakdown or whatever it is. They've got to have this rainy day fund. So if you're coming, I've got a business that makes mice. You see it doing here on my desk. I make mice. I make 500 mice a day. I've got orders for 5,000 mice a day. But they're not going to pay me money for all those extra orders of mice unless I can give them the mice. Like a big retailer, Best Buy or whoever. But they'll buy 5,000 mice a day. But I can't make that. Bank, here I have these orders from this company, guaranteed orders. Will you loan me money to buy equipment to make 5,000 mice a day? And they may call up, do some due diligence and call up Best Buy. Is this real? And yes, and we love their mice, and we're going to buy this stuff. And the bank goes, yeah, okay, this is a worthy loan. We'll loan this guy, to the business, not to his personal account, to the business account. We'll take the risk. And because we always foreclose and get that machinery back, and then it's used, might not get the same amount for it, but sell it to somebody else to make some different mice, or make some other plastic molded injected thing, or whatever it is, make so they can still get some of their assets back if the business fails. It's not a 100% loss if it goes out of business. It's just a hassle. And they'd rather maybe quickly sell off that hassle to somebody who deals with it. So take a bit of a loss, but overall, it's they do it. So you want banks to loan me money so I can go from 500 mice a day to 5,000 mice a day, which grows the economy, which employs more people, which keeps everything going. So banks are useful and necessary and good. Then we can talk about toxic banks somewhere, and I know they have been bad at times, whether generally or specifically to one particular bank, big bank. I'm not saying, hey, Toy Jet, doing well. How are you doing? So yeah. Other than a bubble collapse and a reorganization, there isn't really a easy, painless solution to your problem, Finnegan. So I like the name Finnegan. That's why I'm calling you that. So yeah, those are pretty bad. Oh, I'm sorry you're doing bad. Hope things get better for you. Don't know whether you want to share now or you want to talk to me some other time, but about why things are going bad. Battle cruiser armor thickness, that is under capital ships, and that is right here. Okay. Down here. Well, let's do some of these. Okay, Air Force HQs. We'll get that going. Okay, well, I hope the trouble works out well enough. I can make a guess or two, but yeah, I hear you. Got that's three. These are my sort of battleship groups here. Well, basically, we don't know that it's going to work. Um, because what you would have to do, I mean, it can happen, Finnegan, just by theoretically, just by whatever. And again, I'm talking a little bit out of my ass because I don't actually know enough details to talk about it well. But you could just do something like, um, for bank assets and other assets, the valuation of the property has to be based upon actual income of the property as opposed to theoretical income. The mere fact that you got one person, one business to rent in that location at $10 a square foot for 4 years, and then they go out of business, and you sit there for 4 or 5 years waiting for somebody else who will rent at that same level. So you've established a baseline for the property and you're able to keep it. You just need to change the regulations that says, well, the value of the building is based upon actual rental income, kind of thing, not based upon what you got for it at some point. That lake is long gone. I think it died in the 1960s. You have done a lot of text for them. Okay, I don't know if we're going to do battle cruisers. I'm just not sure on that. Definitely going to do battleships. Definitely going to do heavy cruisers and light cruisers. I just don't, so it's just battle cruiser armor thickness, but so a bunch of these are texts that capital ship bulkhead layouts and whatever that are good for all of them. I just go one for the battle cruiser here. A few things. Definitely going to do light and heavy cruisers. Definitely going to do battleships. Just not sure on the cruisers. At least that's my. I'm just not sure. We're definitely going for big surface fleet, air, and gunnery. Not just you know. In America, the was black shoe or brown shoe navy. Pilots wore brown shoes, or could wear brown shoes, where the navy shoes are black, but the pilots could wear brown. Aviators, or whatever you want to call them, in their crews, recon units. So that's why it's sort of it's that distinction in shorthand. Black shoe navy and brown shoe navy aircraft carrier, or carrier aircraft. That would be over here. And it's grayed out. Okay, good. Well, is there something over here on the carriers we should be? Fleet carrier class. Yeah, let's look at that. No, we've gone down and needed. Belgium, submarine. Okay, you can have a submarine. We'll give it. No, we don't need money for supplies. Doubles, good. Okay, we've got some of the coal, which has helped out some, but it is not. We're in the sort of second wave of coal stuff, and some I did double. But I'm thinking, because we're going to continue to expand our industry, and America is having a severe coal problem. And so going through the chaos of switching over from one to the other, you don't want to collapse the banking system. Don't listen to people who want to do that. That'll just cause problems. So I migrated over somehow. Get it so that the actual market has influence on the rental values up or down on property, because Rodeo Drive or some other place just gets to have outrageous rental because it is just too chic and too prestigious of a place, whether it's actually makes you profitable or not. But if you're Gucci or whatever, you want to have your store on Rodeo Drive just to have it there, even if the actual income of the store is less than the actual, the cost of being there, not just rent, but other costs maybe. But the idea of having it there is prestigious and cool. If you're Gucci or people who want to buy actually Gucci or buy real Gucci stuff. And so that'll just get to be outrageous and expensive. But I've been 20 years since I've been to Rodeo Drive or more. But that's just literally like 3 or 4 blocks that's properly Rodeo Drive and is super expensive kind of thing. So yeah, let that be as expensive as they want to be because of what it is. Other places will be much more practically valued. And if you've got, super high rental property somewhere, well, hey, yeah, you're at the ocean or whatever, and it's really super cool. But yes, we need whatever country you are, whether it's the U.S. and I'm talk about that, or whether it's Sweden or Germany or Monaco, you don't need to house the world. So if you constantly let in unfettered new people showing up, sort of like Monaco, I believe there's no income tax in Monaco. I could be wrong about that. But it is, for rich people mostly, and there's a lot of rich people that want to move there. I'm sure it drives up real estate prices. I don't know if there's special help for Monacan citizens of longer standing to keep their rental and ownership properties better. But if you let the world in, you're just going to drive up rental prices. And Monaco is a good example of it because it's a very small micro state that doesn't have any poor people coming in there. The poor people that work there, shall we say, live outside of Monaco and come into Monaco just because it's, Seattle is weird in that it's super expensive, but the rest of the state is far, far more mild. Yeah, and I mostly just hear about Seattle in the news, and it's probably 1980 something or whatever since I've last been in Seattle, and back then it was sort of a neat place. Why is it so expensive there? It's because there's high demand. Poor people, well, they should go somewhere else. And if you didn't have poor people willing to live, like I say, 4 people to not to an apartment, but to a room. I'm envisioning like 4 people coming from some other country, all willing to sleep in bunk beds and earn money in America and work cheaper. They want to keep the share the rent costs down, kind of thing like that. If you don't want to focus on that, then if you don't have that flooding in, then you'll just have not enough workers. So the either the rental prices will come down and or the wages will go up to meet the needs. If there isn't a good transportation system, which could just be automobiles, but coming in from cheaper areas into where it's nearby Tacoma is filled with people that live in Tacoma. Yeah, work in Seattle. Yeah, and I don't know. And I've commuted in the L.A. area. And the idea of I was lucky to get there in half an hour or so. If everything worked right, I could get to work or get home in half an hour. But if there was any sort of accident or any sort of thing, it was going to be 45 minutes to an hour. It's about half the time one way or the other was a bit more time coming in. So commuting into work is a thing. I've done it, and there's nothing wrong with the concept of it. It's just at what point is it worth it or not worth it? And are they paying enough? Okay, medium armor design, which is probably grayed out, yes. And what is bow ramps, which is, I think, I want it done, yes. Okay, good. And a lot of that should just be, market. Unless you can give me a compelling reason, like, oh shit, we gotta house these people, and whatnot, then I'm sort of like that. Hello, Barocas, how you doing? Actually born in LA County. I'm originally from Long Beach. Ah, okay. I'm not that far away from where I'm not going to quite out exactly where I am, but I know that area very well. So, Japan annex you want. Japan is going to annex it. Wait for it. Wait for it. Somebody stole our blueprints. Okay. Aren't they going to give it over to China? Okay, molybdenum sales have ended. Close air support. Prototypes, that would be here. Okay. The support tanks. Not the British, so I'm not thinking of it. Oh, that's right. We have this over here. Light infantry support. Come on, give it over to the Chinese. Japan has one last place to conquer. Yes, there we go. So give it over to the Republic of China and Nanjing. Once they get that, then Japan will take the coast and leave the interior to China to manage. Okay, we're starting to get some of our ships out. Soon we want to continue to both increase our coal production or energy, however you want to say that within these game terms, and increase our industrial production. we get through a few of these, we're going to start doing some more carriers and battleships because those are the long lead times. If anyone is new here, please follow or subscribe depending on the service. And I don't know that there's anybody actually watching on Twitter, but I'm broadcasting currently live to Twitter, to Twitch, to YouTube, and to Facebook. So if you are live and want to watch it on a different service because you get better connection or whatever, take our puppets money. How are we doing for money? Okay, so we could take our puppets money. 3,000. We'll do that from our puppet. Sorry, we'll do. No, I don't want to give it to South Africa. Money for cruise from Finland. So different playing the U.S. than Germany, where with Germany, I'm constantly worrying about getting resources and constantly trying to sell my supplies to pay for those resources. So I use a lot more diplomacy than I've been needing to use here. Okay, War of the Worlds. Heard parts of the recording of the radio broadcast, and long ago they made a movie about this, of people's reaction. War of the Worlds, a recent radio adaptation of H.G. Wells' novel War of the Worlds in the United States has caused mass hysteria among its listeners. Directed and narrated by Orson Welles, the radio drama was a special Halloween episode of Mercury Theater on the air and described a seemingly unstoppable Martian invasion of the Earth. Many who caught only part of the broadcast believed it told of a real event and reacted with panic. Experts attribute this to the tense international situation and looming specter of war that hangs over the nation. I don't know how much it was, the international situation, but I watched a movie they made back, I think it was in the 70s, about this incident. It was done as if it was a news broadcast. The whole thing was done as if it was a news broadcast. And they very, very clearly state at the beginning of the program that it was just a news, or it was a drama. It wasn't real. But once it starts, they don't ever stop and update that. They don't have, and here's a note from our, radio stations that this is just they like towards the end of it, they do. But a lot of people don't have radios in their cars or whatever, so they've panicked and left. So they don't, I think at some point they do update because it's like an hour or two. It's like an hour or two. But a lot of people panic and start fleeing cities and running away, just mostly in the Northeast, in the sort of nearby areas, meaning they weren't running mad out in LA because it was being described as, I don't know, somewhere up and around here, I forget where. And so people in this area were panicking. And it was real and dramatic, and, it really affected people because people, hey, hello, Eric. People really believed the media in the past. And so what the media told them, they believed it was true. And so if the news was saying this was happening, oh my God, it must be happening. Now if the news says and shows photos of an alien invasion, we're going to go, huh, really? You trying to trick us with that? And so, okay, so we get, daily descent until November. Okay, so just a month here. And land organization, I don't care about land organization right now. Okay, artillery unit combined arms advance. That is here, 1940. Let's see, is there another 1930? Here immediately that I need to be researching. And artillery, go command and control advance 2. I have to get both of them done. Let's come over here and do those two. And so, like I was saying, I'm not using a lot of diplomacy right now. Maybe I should be trying to influence nations. I don't know. Control system training. Oh, that's probably just the general one here. Yes. Like bomber prototypes. Okay, grayed out. Most of those are being done. Carriers. What are we going to try to push ahead earlier on? Carriers, but not too far. Okay. Oops. Do float plane scouts. And both of these we're pushing early on, so let's do damage control. Wonder why that isn't updating. See, alien invasion. All right, who benefits? As some people would probably say, yeah. Well, partially also, we have just so much, you know. Materials, yeah, you can have that. You know, CGI and other computer graphics. So if they were showing us pictures of spaceships, we might not believe that it's real. But they didn't. Well, they, you know, if you watch the old Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers series, they had some special effects, but not terribly believable. Now, if you hadn't seen any else before, you might believe it. But yeah, we'll do that. Okay, we've now gotten back to high popularity. Very nice. The Arc Royal is launched, and that allows us to do more research on things. And we'll do U.S. embargo on Japan. Japan's extensive aggression in East Asia has led the U.S. to embargo scrap metal shipments to Japan and constrains its foreign policy actions and closes the Panama Canal to Japanese shipping. The U.S. responded by freezing Japan's assets in the U.S. and embargoing all oil and gas export. Oil was Japan's most critical imported resource. More than 80% of Japan's oil imports at this time came from the United States, although some nations in South America have much needed oil. They are unable to provide it to Japan due to U.S. influences. Effectively, the entire American continent is embargoed to Japan. Okay. This has a lot to do with what's happening today with Russia and Ukraine as well. And there's now reports that the U.S. provided information that allowed the Ukrainians to target the Moskva heavy cruiser or whatever class of cruiser it was, and to allow it to be sunk. some people on the internet, including those with millions of subscribers and whatnot, are claiming that the U.S. means the U.S. is at war with Russia. Well, most of these people are younger than I am, and they don't remember the Cold War. Now, when you say Cold War, does that mean the Cold War we were at war with Russia? No, we weren't at war with Russia. We were in a Cold War, which is a different thing. It's maybe indirect hostilities. Indirect, not direct. It can lead, and it does in this case, to war with Japan, and then Germany declaring war on the U.S. Now, trying to be very careful with what I say because I want my historical analysis and my sort of modern political analysis to be correct, if you will. Nations have the right to trade with who they want to. Okay. Now, I want to say this up front clearly so you understand it. We as individuals are all hypocrites at some level. Some are major hypocrites, some are minor, whatever. That doesn't matter. We're all hypocrites. And all nations are hypocritical at some level as well. So I just said a nation has the right to trade with who it will. Well, Japan didn't want to fucking trade with anybody. Well, the Dutch. They wanted to trade with the Dutch. They knew the Dutch liked to live on islands. So down in Nagasaki, they created a little island that attracted Dutchmen to it. And they would show up at this little island and trade and then go away. But that's all they wanted to do. They'd actually allow them to fly a Dutch flag off the island. They had this little tiny sort of man-made type island that the Dutch could show up and live on. And ships could come and go periodically, like a couple times a year or something. But otherwise, they didn't want to trade with anybody. Well, Perry shows up with the American fleet before the American Civil War and shows up and says, hey, you're going to trade with us. I don't know if there was a really or, like we're actually going to bombard you, but it was like, hey, you're going to trade with us. So there wasn't too much of an option to say no. I'm sure there was some level of an option to say no, but we sort of forced the doors open. We wanted to trade with Japan. And now it wasn't any sort of, because the Americans' ideological belief, I mean, we are hypocrites, sure, like every other nation, but maybe not as bad a hypocrite. It wasn't going to be an exclusive thing, like an American economic zone. Anybody could trade with Japan. We just wanted trade happen. That is basically also what is happening with China. Imperial China, before, we're talking like 1900, the Boxer Rebellion and whatnot, didn't want to trade with foreigners. Oh, they wanted to have Hong Kong and a little sort of, again, British and Macau or Portuguese people on islands. They sort of wanted the Macau. They didn't really want Hong Kong, but they sort of accepted that. Have a little bit of trade here, and that was still sort of wars and whatnot, but sort of controlled by them, limited trade. Well, eventually we say, nope, you're going to have to open up the doors. Now the Europeans wanted to carve out sections for each nation. The U.S. wanted, hey, everybody just compete in it, force it open. So yes, of course, the U.S. is hypocritical. Not saying we're not. But it's still, now of course in Japan's case, they realize once somebody's knocking on the doors, go, oh shit, we're still swinging swords at each other, and we have the few that we have, really crappy matchlock muskets around. We're behind the times, and they once they saw it, they embraced trade with the world and modernization. China still sort of kind of has not modernization, but they have not embraced trade with the world. Oh, they want to sell things to the rest of the world. they don't want to buy things, manufactured things particularly, from other parts of the world. They do not want open door trade policies in China still to this day. They like exports, and if they need to, they don't like to, but if they have something they can't make, rare earth materials or oil or whatever they don't have enough of, they will import it if needed, but they don't like to do that either. They don't want to do that. It's sort of a necessary evil for them, the import. They like the export. They don't like the import. So it is every nation's right to refuse to trade with somebody. Yes, like I just said, sometimes we'll ignore those rights, but it is their right. Now, for the American case on hypocriticism, America didn't invade Japan. They just sort of showed up with a navy and waved hi. And for China, really didn't invade China either. And you can talk about the Boxer Rebellion and the relief of the siege at Peking, the foreign quarter at Peking, but really it wasn't. It was more of like, hey, our embassy is under siege. We're sending in troops to relieve it, and then leave a really small garrison, and then sort of leave Shanghai, really sort of minor garrisons. It really wasn't, it wasn't a major invasion. It was more like, hey, a demonstration, and you better get on board, or we'll go home or something. Let's see if this works. So, compared to Japan's invasion of China to get it as an exclusive Japanese trade zone or something else. So, the U.S. isn't quite as bad hypocritical as other nations. And some of the reasons for these trade actions can very much be to have a nation behave differently than it does. Okay. That is often why they happen. It is not equal, does not equal, is not equal, does not justify kinetic or, kinetic warfare, meaning warfare of a shooting type. Now, normally, trade embargoes. Now, we're not talking about actual blockades, like ships sitting off the shore and not allowing them to enter and leave necessarily, but just national trade embargoes. Normally, it works to modify the behavior of the other country, but not necessarily in the direction that those implementing the embargoes want them to. Meaning, like in Japan's case, it definitely modifies Japan's actions. So instead of just fighting a war with China, they also fight a war with the U.S. So it gets them to modify their behavior, which is to attack the U.S. And we have harsh embargoes against Iran as I speak now currently. And I do not believe that if we didn't have embargoes on Iran, that they would, they'd be nice, friendly nation and not send terrorists around the world and foment rebellion in Shiite nations, and they'd just be good, natural people. No, I don't think so. I just think they would be more two-faced about it. Pretend not to be doing it while still doing it, as opposed to doing it openly and blatantly. So now when we get to today's, Iran is still, of course, ongoing. When we get to today's situation of economically isolating Russia, like shutting down all the McDonald's, it's a minor thing. But I think a lot of the McDonald's are opening back up under a different name. because I think most of the hamburger patties and hamburger buns were produced locally, and they'll just keep making McDonald's and put it under a different name. Whether, so I think so. I'm trying to analyze this and look at this. If the U.S. had not embargoed Japan and allowed Japan to, well, not allowed, but not embargo Japan, and to feed it steel, to feed it oil and other materials, might have kept them from attacking the United States, might even have kept them from attacking other Western European countries, because, again, under this influence, they get the Dutch to stop selling oil to Japan, I believe. They're influencing Latin America to not sell oil, but that's too far away for them to attack. I don't know whether I'm trying to think, they probably wouldn't have gotten Indochina from the French. Probably not. They probably, if America had continued to sell all that they could afford to buy of steel, of oil, and anything else, just what they could afford to buy, I don't think they would attack the European powers. They just would have been in an ongoing war with China. Would that have been better for the world? Don't know if anybody in chat now wants to speak out on that. Oh, we have... no, not gonna allow... let me hide... Ali out there with your emojis. I don't know that we're gonna do those, so... sorry, those are not terribly appropriate emojis. So that, what would the world be different without Japan going to war and joining the Axis with the European powers? Would that make the war the better place? Well, Japan wants to eat China bite by bite, not all at once. China does not want, under Chiang Kai-shek, does not want to give up its territory, its coastal territory. It does not. He realizes that the goal of China, or goal of Japan, is not a limited one. It is every 10 or 20 years, it's another big bite of China. So he is not willing to give in on that. For some reason, that is no longer. Okay. I wonder what I missed other times. Don't know if that's still working. Let me down it. Reopen Restream over here. Okay. Yeah. Hey Arno, are you around over on Twitch? Can you just post a message on Twitch and see if it comes through? Again. So if it had just been a Sino-Japanese war, what we would have today, if we just allowed this to continue, we would have a Okay. Hello, Federal. I don't know if people see. I don't. I think my restream has stopped reporting stuff over on Twitch, so I don't know if I've been missing people's comments over there. Hello. Why did the Japanese attack the U.S.? All the resources they needed was in territories held by the Dutch and the British. I've been looking for the reason why they decided to drag the U.S. in. That's the reason. And they believed the cultural kinship between Britain and the U.S. was strong enough that if Japan attacks, particularly here, the U.S. would go to war. I mean, it's as simple as that. And I've read about some of the stuff. They wanted this oil, but the Dutch colonies are effectively a British puppet at the stage that it happens. Okay. Now, they're entirely run by the Dutch. Okay. Don't think that there's any British people running the Dutch East Indies. But unlike, because France is occupied, and the French garrisons never, well, the great bulk of the French garrisons never leaves Vietnam when the Japanese come and occupy it. And they're not put in prisoner of war camps. They just all stay in their barracks. They're just told to stay in the barracks. And they stay in their barracks during the whole war. Now, they can go out to eat lunch or something without their uniforms on, but they're not allowed to deploy as troops. And they're, I think they still have like their rifles, but they're disarmed from any heavy weapons, and they just sit as sort of inactive garrisons during the entire Japanese occupation. The French do in Indochina. That's basically I'm sure I'm getting wrong in some details, but that's basically the condition of the French in Indochina. There are some troop evacuations, but I think the great overwhelming number of the French Indochinese troops, the French troops in Indochina, I should say, just stay there and stay in barracks. They're not put in prisoner of war camps. Britain is still actively in the war. Britain still controls Malaya very directly controls Singapore, which is sort of separate from Malaya, sort of the similar, sort of separate. And there's a Dutch fleet down here, and the Dutch fleet is mainly a fleet set up to control this area. I mean, they've got cruisers, proper ship cruisers. They don't. I think they're mostly light cruisers, as cruisers go. I don't know if Arno here would have better if there's any heavy cruisers, but they're basically few cruisers, destroyers, that kind of thing. And Japan knows that a declaration of war against the Dutch will bring Britain into it because they're allies. They're actively allies at this point. Queen Wilhelmina, the current queen of the Netherlands, escapes. I think some more of the Dutch government escapes to Britain. There's a government in exile in Britain. So functionally, the Dutch East Indies are a puppet state of Britain in that sense. So again, there's Dutch people ruling Indonesia. It isn't like a bunch of British soldiers or a bunch of British colonial bureaucrats show up. No, they just continue everything as usual, but it's become a British protectorate, and any sort of element for the war effort, resources primarily, are all going into the collective British war effort. And the U.S. is willing to do everything, and it gets back to this, doing everything it can for China, up to including sending volunteers that literally go from I'm a U.S. Army Air Corps pilot to handing in, oh, hey, that allows somebody, Chenault, basically, to come around and go, hey, guys, I've made a deal with the Army Air Corps that anybody who you can quit right now today. You know, however long it says. You know, you're like you signed up for 5 years or 2 years or whatever. However long on your officer contract with that, they'll let you get out of it right now, no penalties. You can get out of your contract, and I will I'll hire you, and you'll leave. You get to leave there. I'll immediately hire you into the Chinese Air Force at some low pay, but I'll give you, I think it was $100 per aircraft you shoot down, which is a lot of money at the time, to fly in China. So they literally do a deal with the U.S. government to get U.S. pilots to officially leave U.S. Army Air Corps service. I think 2 or 3 of them leave, like the Marine Corps. One of them is Greg Pappy Boyington, famous Marine pilot, that comes over. And the U.S. government, some models of P-40s that, you know, the British just don't really quite think they need anymore because, you know, upgrades to the air war in Europe. So they're sort of like, oh yeah, these P-40 aircraft. Now there's newer models. They continue using the P-40s, but you know, these sort of right now excess to needs, and this is in 1941, excess to needs of aircraft that the British don't quite need right now. We'll sell them, give them. Just very much like what's happening in Ukraine right now. This is why this is sort of an important topic, and I'm going in on it. You know, we'll give them, sell them to China and whatnot, and so we'll give American pilots, American ground crews, you know, mechanics that have left the Army Air Corps, so they're no longer officially in the Army Air Corps. Give them these rather advanced aircraft. They're not the most advanced by this point, but they're, you know, as the scale goes, okay, they're a few, you know, they're a model or two older than the most advanced, but they're still damn advanced aircraft. We're going to give them to China, and they're going to go fight in the war. So they'll do that, and they'll do all the economic, you know, you can't trade with the U.S. You can't trade, you know, oh, Mexico, you're going to trade with us? Great, good. Oh, well, if you also trade with, you know, these especially essential things, because there's a lot, Pemex is the main Mexican oil company. Probably Pemex, I don't know if it would satisfy all of Japan's needs, but it would be a big, huge, massive amount of oil going to Japan. Yeah. Do you want to trade with us or do you want to trade with Japan? Make your choice. Which do you want to do? They go, U.S. We trade so much more with the U.S. Maybe not in oil, but in other things we trade more with the U.S. So yeah, we'll do what the U.S. wants us to do. And outside of some little, and mostly it was U.S. Marines going after rebels, but outside of sort of some direct action in a few little places around here, the U.S. isn't threatening military action on any of these countries. It's not even an implied threat. It's more of, do you want to trade with us or do you want to trade with Japan? Let's put it that way. Okay, see you, Finnegan. I don't know if you've already left. Have a good day. But I still want to go on with this topic. And so the U.S. is willing to do everything but actually go to war because of China. Everything they can possibly do short of shooting at the Japanese in the planes painted with American stars on them. They'll give them American planes flown by American pilots with Chinese stars on them, because the Chinese have different sort of white stars than the Americans do. They put Chinese stars on them and they fly against them. Now that's really, actually, that last little bit is only happening as and only gets sort of set up and flying as Japan's attacking. So, but Japan realizes these things are happening, and so what is America going to do if they declare war against the British? Because to get to the Dutch, you got to declare war against the British, and America has this sitting in the way, this strategical position. and it, of course, has a fleet that it remembers when it went to war with Russia up here, and they take Port Arthur down here. This is Port Arthur. That was a Russian imperial port here down here. Take Port Arthur. That there is an ongoing battle here, going on and on and on. They can win. Japan can win battles, but Russia can just keep enough connection to keep sending more troops. Just keep enough sending more troops. And so the Russian Imperial fleet actually does something really remarkable. It sails from here. A few go through the Suez, but most of them sail all the way around Africa. Sail all the way up here. And because the main action at that point is over here at Vladivostok, sails up to here and gets to the Straits of Tsushima right about here. And the Japanese sink the Russian Imperial fleet. Now, it did a remarkable thing of sailing all the way around the continents. Russia had never done anything like that before. That's actually a really remarkable feat. But it gets sunk. A European main battle fleet. And remember, there were some janky ships within this, but a lot of it was sort of high-tech ships that I think a lot of them were built by Germany. But I'm not sure on all the details of who built the Russian fleet. But it was a high-tech European fleet that just gets sunk by a non-European fleet. One that was not built by Britain, but a bunch of British technical people. Japan and Britain sort of have a alliance at this point, and so there's a lot of British influence in the Japanese Navy. But it is still primarily a Japanese Navy. Japanese built, sinks a European fleet, and the war's over. Not that quick, but sinking of the Russian fleet allows them to do peace negotiations and have the war. Well, that's what Japan it remembers that. So it thinks, well, if we come down here, lightning blitzkrieg, take all this stuff here. America, if we can sink their fleet here. America, well, last time, and they see America as just another European country. Well, they'll negotiate. And you know what? I personally believe, and this is belief time and not, good scholarship, but I believe that, our fleet got sunk. Well, okay, we'll negotiate. Not surrender, we'll negotiate. Okay, you withdraw from the Philippines. You withdraw from Singapore. Maybe you get to keep sort of Borneo possession. Oh, and we will agree to sell, 1 million tons a year of steel, and we'll agree to sell 100,000 barrels of oil a year from the U.S., and we'll agree to some of these things. And Japan mostly withdraws from, might keep some, try to keep some strategic oil resources, but leaves, Sumatra, Java, the rest of the Dutch East Indies, leaves, Malaya, which are, doing a lot of rubber and a lot of, we can click here, we can see there's a lot of resources down here. So there's a lot of wealth. They just may want to, keep some direct oil, but negotiate a settlement out. So they think a quick naval war and a quick sort of Blitz Island Creek war will, if they can sink the American fleet, sink the British fleet, Prince of Wales and Repulse down here, sink all that, take this stuff, negotiate a situation that will allow them to continue fighting in China. So they think, hey, we can't win this one war. Let's try another one, see if we can win that one. And if we can win that one, we've won. We'll win. But if we can't win it, well, we're fucked. Well, they were fucked. So that is why it's a combination of geography, and I think correctly, if they declare war on the British and the Dutch, I think it could have gotten up to the point that the Dutch or the Americans would have gone to war, but it wouldn't have been a everybody agreeing on the war. It would have been a controversial war. should we have gotten into it? We just jumped up here. We got some effect, it looks like. Okay. Right. Well, let's save this. So does that, Better Cole, does that explanation sound reasonably good? Reasonably correct? That's my understanding is geography, because we had fleets here, we had soldiers here, Marines. Oh, some army troops too. So yeah, it's going to be a war. And they felt there's going to be a war anyway, so let's just do it and do it fast. Well, I think that'll be it for this episode. I want to thank everyone. Frederick Kroll, I know Finnegan has gone. Arno, I don't know if you're still around, but thanks everyone. Toyjet, Eric. Tomorrow, Eric and I think Arno, we're going to be playing Postscriptum, the sort of cooperative. We're going to try to do some cooperative tank drivings and whatnot. So hopefully that'll be fun to come and hang out and watch us and see 3 or 4 guys try to drive a tank together and shoot up at some enemies and see how all that goes. Hopefully it'll be fun to hang out and watch with us. If you have Postscriptum and want to join us, please do. Just I gotta make sure mine's up to date, and so everyone update their Postscriptum, and hopefully we'll see everything tomorrow. Thanks everyone. See you later. Bye.